Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's vaccine distribution update for the DuPage County Health Department. My name is Karen Ayala and I serve as the Executive Director here at the Health Department. Let's start off with the percentage of vaccine coverage we have achieved over this last week. As you'll recall, that our target population of individuals is really set at the 18 years old and above population and achieving about 80% coverage for that population. As of the 15th, we have over 376,000 residents who have received at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. And as of this week, we also have about 243,000 individuals, or over 25% of our residents who have now been fully vaccinated. This week, we're receiving over 20,000 doses, first doses of vaccine for this week. We're expecting an additional 20,000 doses next week. And we are on a pretty good pace, an average of about 20,000 doses a week. Now, as is the case for previous weeks, we have additional requests for vaccine from our vaccine providers that we're not able to fulfill because we still are receiving fewer doses than we have requested and then that our vaccine partners can provide. Also in big news this week, as of the 12th, we all remember that all DuPage County residents who are over the age of 16 years old, because again, one of the vaccines is approved for 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. All of our residents 16 and above are now eligible to register and to receive vaccine. You'll see that we have added about 70,000 doses, first doses this past week. People who are fully immunized went up by a little over 46,000 individuals. And again, a reminder that we now have 26.22% of our population, which is an increase of 4.96% since last week. We're also seeing, as you reflect on this slide and you remember, that the number of vaccines being administered on a daily basis is also rising as we have more vaccine available to us to immunize. DuPage County remains at the top of the collar counties and is over the average of the statewide numbers for individuals who are being fully vaccinated. You'll also see that our 7-day rolling average has gone up dramatically. Again, that has to do with the fact that we are finally seeing some increases and some sustained increases of vaccine supply, both from our state allocation as well as from the federal allocation that is coming directly into our community, primarily through the pharmacies. We continue to see and to monitor to make sure that not only are we effectively distributing vaccine, but that we're equitably distributing vaccine. And although we continue to have issues with race and ethnicity not being completed on the vaccine administration record and not being reflected, you will see that we are continuing to increase in our race and ethnicity distribution. Our age distribution continues to reflect significant improvement in both the 16 to 64-year-olds as well as the 65 and up. And you'll also see that the male-female ratio continues to move closer to that 50-50 split. All very good signs. So as we look at that 65 and up population, and again, we call this population out because they have borne the brunt of morbidity, which is illness, and mortality, which is death, throughout this pandemic. So you'll see that now we have over 85% of our residents who are 65 years old and over who have received at least one dose, and over 70% of those individuals are now fully vaccinated with COVID-19 vaccine. How does that stack up compared to the other counties in the state of Illinois? You'll see that, again, DuPage County is listed as the second most effective in reaching that population, which represents a significant and a strategic investment to make sure that our vaccine doses are going to, again, those individuals who have the highest risk for what we consider severe outcomes. And again, those severe outcomes are hospitalizations and deaths. Once again, we can talk about the bridge phase of reopening Illinois, but unfortunately, as we'll see, the fact that we're vaccinating more senior citizens is really the only factor that is improving. When we look at the ICU bed capacity, you will see that is starting to decline. You'll also see that hospital admissions, as well as hospitalized, the overall number of patients in the hospital because of COVID, continue to increase. We are heartened, but starting to see a slight increase. Although the label is no significant change, we're starting to see a slight increase even in our mortality, which are all factors which will prevent us from moving forward as a state and reopening our communities. We know that we can get vaccine in a variety of places, and again, I just draw your attention to the fact that, and this will be important with another update that I have later for this week, that we received primarily Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. We have received a little bit of vaccine of Johnson & Johnson vaccine, about 4,500 doses that have been administered in DuPage County, but again, the vast majority comes from the Moderna and Pfizer stockpile. We provide the vaccine through a variety of sites, and once again want to remind our residents, like all Illinois residents, of the fact that you can access vaccine at any of the state-run mass vaccination sites. Here's a list of some who are more in our local region, but certainly if you go to the IDPH website, they have a full list. You will also see that although we have had some predictions of lower doses, we have been able to retain about 20,000 doses that we're receiving through our allocation at the local health department over the last several weeks. We certainly hope and anticipate that that will continue. Again, our efforts are primarily from a vaccination perspective. Our efforts at the health department are primarily focused on our community vaccination clinic. You will see that we have made slight progress in getting to some of our higher risk populations over the course of this week. But we also are still seeing about 3,200 new registrations that are coming in per day. And we still have over 208,000 individuals waiting on our registration list for vaccine. As a reminder, we have we opened our community vaccination site on February 10th, but actually our vaccination site had been ongoing since the 20th of December. We simply relocated it to the fairgrounds so that we could accommodate larger volumes. We have been expanding capacity This says about 1,400 doses a day is our current capacity. We have been able to increase that and are now over 1,600 doses per day. And again, we have administered over 50,000 doses at our site alone, one of only many in the county. So for those of you who might be getting onto the registration list and able to register for vaccine and so are thinking about it for the first time, want to make sure that you remember to get a spot in line for your shot. Again, we've used this graphic throughout this vaccine effort. We are now fully open for registration. Again, a caveat with that, or a reminder that that does not mean that just because you're eligible for a vaccine that you will be able to receive one at this point, because we still have, as indicated by our numbers, we still have much more demand and interest in vaccine than we have actual vaccine doses available. Now, speaking of vaccine, I wanted to take a few minutes this week and talk about the different kinds of vaccine, because we've certainly been hearing about vaccine, and specifically the Johnson & Johnson vaccine this past week. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are considered messenger RNA, or mRNA vaccines for short. Just a little information on vaccine development before in our vaccination efforts, since vaccines became widespread for a variety of conditions. Vaccines had to trigger an immune response by making vaccines that put a weakened or an inactivated germ into our bodies. That was true for polio. It's true for a variety of vaccinations. The messenger RNA or the mRNA vaccines do not do that. Instead, they teach our cells how to make a harmless piece of what is called the spike protein. And then that spike protein that's found on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. This protein piece serves as an antigen to trigger an immune response inside of our bodies. That immune response is exactly what is needed to produce antibodies, and it's what protects us from getting infected when the real virus enters our body. It's also important to note that mRNA does not enter the cell's nucleus, so it does not affect or even interact with our DNA in any way. This is a common myth and misunderstanding and source of inaccurate information. mRNA in COVID-19 vaccine does not interact with our DNA. While there are no currently licensed vaccines other than Pfizer and Moderna using this technology, it's important to know that the basis of the development of Moderna and Pfizer that was used, including the mRNA, has been in development for the last 10 years. It's been studied for decades in vaccine trials for things like influenza, Zika, rabies, and cytomegalovirus. Beyond even vaccines, though, cancer research has used the mRNA to trigger the immune system to target specific cancer cells. So some individuals have expressed concern or dismay over the quick progress or the quick development of these vaccines. We wanted to share that we know that this has been a very quick development of vaccine. In less than 15 months, we were able to develop, test, and now begin distributing these vaccines. For more information, there's a couple of websites on this page. If you're interested in more information about what mRNA vaccines are about, please check those out. The other type of vaccine that has been developed in response to this pandemic is viral vector vaccines. And this is the type of vaccine that Janssen has used to produce the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So viral vector vaccines use a modified version of a different virus or the vector to deliver important instructions to our cells. Again, it produces a harmless piece of the virus that causes COVID-19, but what it does is it tricks the cell into displaying the spike protein on its surface. Our immune system recognizes that that particular piece of cellular material does not belong there, and then it triggers our immune system to begin producing antibodies and activating other immune cells to fight off what it thinks is an infection. Again, these vaccines do not interact or affect our DNA in any way, and they cannot actually give somebody COVID-19 because of the vaccination or through the vaccination. Like all state of Illinois sites, we too are pausing the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine following the guidance and the recommendation from the CDC, FDA, and IDPH. As you'll recall, earlier this week, CDC and FDA recommended pausing the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The academy that reviews the immunization practices met yesterday on the 14th of April and recommended pausing for an additional week until further studies around the safety of this vaccine can be addressed. I think it's important to remember that we took action quickly with this vaccine because we have said all along that safety of the COVID-19 vaccine is a top priority and is being closely monitored. For those of you who haven't heard the specifics, there were 6 individuals, all of them women between the ages of 18 and 48, who developed a specific type of blood clot combined with low platelet counts in their blood. Very tragically, one of those individuals died. Those 6 individuals, though, are out of approximately 7 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that had been administered at the time of the pause. So literally it is a 1 in a million chance that we're seeing this serious side effect, which is concerning. Even 1 in a million, we want to make sure that we're getting right. But for individuals who might have had a Johnson & Johnson vaccine in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we want to make sure that if you develop severe headache or abdominal pain, leg pain, or shortness of breath within those 3 weeks after vaccination, you should contact your healthcare provider as soon as possible and make sure that they're aware of your vaccine status and your recent vaccination. Again, at our vaccine clinic, at the community-based site that we provide here in Wheaton, we use only Pfizer vaccine. And right now, Pfizer and Moderna are still plentiful, available throughout the county. And we would encourage individuals to continue their pursuit and receive vaccination as soon as possible. You can register at our website using this address, You could call this number and speak to someone with either questions or wanting to register. Again, you can get updated information, and we have released a statement on the Johnson & Johnson situation. You will also be, if you're interested in getting more information, register for the weekly newsletter that is published on Fridays. Again, if you have questions about COVID vaccine or COVID disease, COVID-19 disease in general, please submit those questions to us and we will address them in upcoming episodes. Thanks so much.